Hello, everybody. I'm Tonya Davidson, the creator of the Jewelry Makers Guild and a fellow maker of 25 years. It's my quest to learn as much as I can, try as many techniques and materials, and to share those with other artists. So I started the Jewelry Makers Guild group on Facebook, and now we have an Instagram page as well. So I thought it would be fun to do a visual podcast where I talk to other artists and find out what makes their work so amazing. If you're watching this on YouTube, we do have a great channel there that has all of the older podcasts there. Please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you'll see all the future podcasts and other people will be able to see them, because subscribes are how they reward and show it to other artists or jewelry makers. Please help me welcome to my podcast today, Melissa Muir. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
So for those of you who don't know Melissa, let me introduce her. So she is a jewelry artist and teacher currently living in Draper, Utah. Whoa. I just had a notice come up from Zoom. How lovely in the middle of my introduction. Sorry about that. She is a jewelry artist and teacher who is currently living in Draper, Utah with her husband and girls. Melissa is widely known for her fabulous YouTube channel, which features Tool Time Tuesday and shows information on how to choose, maintain, and use all sorts of tools used in the jewelry industry. You will want to definitely subscribe to that channel. She works with many of the top industry leaders such as Fordham, Durston, Micro Tools, Lindstrom, Potter USA, Guess Wine, Jewel Tool, Sunstone Engineering, which makes the Orion, Fretz and Sandra Searles, and many, many more. Melissa has over 300 videos. Wow. On YouTube.
Just a few.
Just a few. I'll never catch up to that. Covering everything from tutorial techniques as well as tool information. Recently, she's partnered with Alan Revere in maintaining the Facebook group Let's Make Professional Jewelry, where she provides videos to accompany the projects in his book, Professionally Jewelry Making. And she just held up the book. This is the older book. And I did all of my initial fabrication classes at Revere and have been there many times for stone setting comprehensives and wax casting and all sorts of things. It's a fabulous place. And his group on Facebook is wonderful. They work through the projects. Melissa helps. She does videos. So it's a great way to learn how to make projects without the expense. So if you think you're interested, check that out as well. Melissa teaches her workshops both in person in her studio as well as at various trade shows, and she even does online workshops, so you'll want to check those out. She loves learning new skills. We have been in class together where she's been trying her hand at hand engraving. We were in a class together with engraving, and now she went and did a gun, which wasn't brave enough to try. And advanced stone setting is the thing that she's currently passionate about as well and learning. In the bottom right hand corner of your screen, you will see Melissa's website and social media pages, so please do check those out. And I'll make sure that you see those in the comments after the podcast is over with. After today, the podcast will be able to be viewed on YouTube for as many times as you would like. And if you leave a comment there, you'll be entered to win a Jewelry Makers Guild enamel pin that I will give out to somebody who leaves a great comment. So thank you for joining me today, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been kind of excited for this to come.
Yeah, we planned this back in December, I think. So
Yes.
as we're talking and I'm asking you questions and we're chatting, I'm going to be showing your work. And if anytime, even if it's not pertinent to what we're discussing, if you want to stop and tell something about the piece or about the technique or the tool that you use to make it, please do that. Just stop us and we will discuss that as well, because that's always a great thing to interrupt and address. So let's dig in.
All right.
My first question for you is there's always something that sparks a start for us. Somebody who was that match that lit our fire when we became interested in art. Maybe we had somebody when we were younger, but there was somebody when we were in our young teens or adulthood that encouraged us, or you saw some piece of art that you really wanted to emulate or be able to make in the future. So I'm curious, what memory do you have of you wanting to be a jewelry maker?
You want to know, it's kind of funny. I'm one of those buried creatives. Like I didn't grow up really creative or anything like that. My mother is extremely talented, interior design and decorating and things like that. And I remember we used to try different projects. Like one time I remember we tried to, and it just popped into my head as you were saying this. But we went to Michael's and it was at a time where they had like silk flowers and you could make them like they're porcelain and then you paint them. Oh my gosh, it turned out terrible. It was horrible. It was so bad, and it was, and I think that was probably middle school, maybe early high school even. And it was just one more little, staple or nail in that coffin of you stink at creativity. So you should not try this, and middle school, high school, I was all about music and instruments. So I played flute and piccolo, and then I moved into percussion, all of that kind of stuff. And, I had the most talented friends, and they would take these art classes and they would just draw beautifully. They would just draw, and it was on napkins, and it was on their math homework, and it was on whatever. And here I'm like, well, I can play an instrument. I can play in the marching band. And then fast forward a few years, and Garth and I had probably been married just maybe like 5 years or so. And it was right before we went back east for him to do grad school. And one of my students at the time, I was teaching web development and programming languages. So I went down that computer path of things. And one of my students gave me a bracelet that she had made. And it was a beaded bracelet. It had amethyst beads and silver beads. And, I was like, wait, you made this? What? I didn't know people actually made jewelry. You know what I mean? As far as like normal people as a hobby. And so when we got into Virginia, here I was with the 2-year-old, and you can only hold so much conversation with a 2-year-old. And my husband was like this all day long in the books, so he was non-existent as well. I'm like, I've got to have something. And so I would go to Michael's with Riley, and we would walk around for like an hour and a half. I'm like, there has got to be something in this store that I can make. And it was when scrapbooking was huge, and Michael's literally had this much jewelry.
Yeah.
So, and it's weird to think that it's almost 20 years ago now that this happened. But anyway, there was this little section, and you know how like Panda books, like they have a little fold out. So there's like a little project on each side. So it's like really 3 pages. That's a fold out. And then they have all their crappy little tools that go with it. So there was a wild wire jig and pliers. Oh my gosh, they're the world's worst pliers. I had no clue at the time, but they are terrible. It's amazing that I made what I made with those, but I did. But anyway, so, looking at what it would cost to get the jig, to get the pliers, to get the cutter, to get some wire, it was like $60. Yeah. And we're students. I'm like, $60, that's like $600. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But I thought about it for like 3 months, and I'm like, I still really want to try this. And so I figure, okay, it's not really a whim purchase at this point. Let's give it a shot. And so I did. And that's just kind of where it started. I started playing, and, I was like, okay, Riley, it's time for bed. Go to bed. Get her off to bed. And I, whip out some little things. And I look back at those pieces, and they're horrible. They're terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying that I made that and stuff. Oh, look at this. We got a video bomber. So, this is Kiari. This is my youngest, and she is an extremely talented jewelry artist. She is amazing with a jeweler's saw. Oh, awesome. Unbelievable. She puts us all to shame.
No broken blades.
No, and she doesn't break blades. Like she was popping them left and right, and I said, I'll give you $20 if you can pierce a piece without popping your blade. And she didn't do one, she did 4 before the blade broke, and they were complex pieces. Did you grab one? Oh.
I don't think you gave me the $20.
Oh, yes, I did. Nice try. I totally gave it to you at the time.
Awesome. She does not like unicorns, from what I understand.
Not at all.
No.
I like unicorns.
She's sarcastic, sweet thing.
It's very good.
But anyway, so it just kind of started from there. And it was it's funny because I found that bracelet about a month ago, and it was like, this is the bracelet that planted that seed that I could do this. And then I didn't really get to see you later, sweet pea. I didn't get to really do a whole lot of it while I was there. However, and while it's a sad part of the story, there's some really good things that happened. So we had a little girl and she died. And while that happened, my company was really bad about everything. So I found the opportunity of a new job at that point. And one of the ladies there, she also did a lot of bead stringing and stuff. And she's like, oh, well, you need to go to this place and take classes. I'm like, they teach classes? What? And so I went and I just took a basic soldering class with a little blazer torch. We made a little chain bracelet. And it was like, wow, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get a chance to do a whole lot there because I was working. My husband was still in school. Well, then we had another baby.
Okay, so just to recap, your gateway drug was wires and beads. You totally got sucked in at Michael's, but look where I'm like, the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking, look at all those hammers hanging on the wall. She got over the $60 in wire and beads.
I did. Oh yeah, no, my studio is a mad mess now. And we moved into this house. Last month we hit 8 years at this house, which is unbelievable. We've never lived anywhere for 8 years. So it's unbelievable to me. But I didn't have a third of the crap in this studio when I moved in here.
And you're not going to want to ever move again, I can tell you that.
No, because I don't ever want to move it.
Yes.
That's why we're remodeling instead of moving.
Yes. And you'll never have that lovely of a studio space again. It's just really hard to find that kind of studio space and be able to spread out and have workstations and all of that. So anyway, back to the interview. So this is kind of a two-part question for you. I believe that all of our experiences that we have, being a mother, traveling across the country, living in many different places, the animals maybe that you've had in your life, the time that you've spent with certain people have formed who you are in your work and your voice. Who would you say maybe had the biggest impact, or a couple people or things that had an impact in your voice and your work and what you like to design and how you like to work?
And I thought about that one too. Like if I could narrow it down to any person or anybody, and I don't know, because quite honestly, as I got into teaching is really even where I started to, I've always had my voice, like people, you can recognize my pieces, when I made a piece, right? And I've always loved like the swirls. So even before I got into jewelry, like my couch, it was full of swirls, and my furniture and my artwork that's in my house, stuff like that.
You should have included a picture of your door.
Oh, I should have, huh? Yes. Oh, that would have been a good one. Yeah. So, and you want to know, it's too funny too. So when we moved to Ohio, Kate was like 10 weeks old at the time. And so that was kind of when I really got started into stuff, because I was like, I'm not going back to work right now. I just moved to a whole new state. Don't know a soul. I just had a baby 10 weeks ago. I'm not going back to work. I'm going to stay home, be a mom, and found out really quickly, I don't do well as a stay-home mom. So I need a job. And so that's kind of where things got started. But I remember I took some classes at the University of Akron, and we would do what we call crits, which are critiques. And so, I would make my pieces, and I was already a little bit more advanced than a lot of the students there, because that's, it was just part of their school curriculum. They were just taking it for their art credit. And, but one of the comments that kept coming up was, you always make swirls. You always make swirls, or you always frame your pieces. You need to step out of this. And I thought, okay, so maybe everybody's tired of seeing my swirls and whatever else. And I have tried so hard. Well, actually, I have two different lines of jewelry that are mine. One is very swirly and very flowy and kind of just that, that ethereal look. And then others are going to be very modern, very straight, clean lines. I love crisp corners. Like, I don't really go for the rounded things. I love corners when they nice and crisp points and stuff like that. But it's funny when I try really hard not to make swirls. If I try to make things like it just doesn't work. And as hard as I try to not put a swirl in something, it goes there. That's what flows out of me.
Out of you anyway.
So, but there is one artist, and I have always loved his work. And over the last couple of years, matter of fact, this last year, I was so fortunate. One of my really good friends had a bunch of this artist paintings, and she was going to get rid of them anyway. She was about ready to contact a gallery to see if she could sell the art through them. And I was like, how about you just bring those right over to my house? And like, there's a beautiful one sitting right here above my computer in my studio right now, because it's one of those things that, even though it has nothing whatsoever to do with jewelry, his style I absolutely love. And I don't know if you've ever seen James C. Christensen. You know, he's got this really weird, funky, like, they're totally weird and funky, but like the detail that he puts into this stuff is just amazing, and the colors. And matter of fact, when you and I were talking, because you brought up this question, and I was like, who does kind of influence what I do? And his work is one of them. And then I got looking on Amazon, and I'm like, hey, look, here's a book. It's a collector book. I want that book. It came today.
Oh, cool.
I haven't even had a chance to look through it yet. But, you know, I would say that there's things like that. And then I don't even know that I could say that there's any one artist that I say, oh, look at this. When I get stuck in a rut, I turn to Pinterest, and maybe I will start searching for things, and I'll just create boards. And then I've got my boards categorized like pendants and bracelets and hinges and lockets and necklaces or rings or earrings or whatever else. And then from there, I might actually subcategorize it so that then I have a look and feel. And it just kind of starts to spark different ideas. And then I pull from all these different things. So I don't even know that I would say that there's one artist that I would pick from that I would say, yes, I love their work. Obviously, having the opportunity to work one-on-one with Alan Revere has been unbelievable. I never, ever thought I would ever have the opportunity to, because when the Revere Academy was going, I had babies, you know, and my husband was a student or just right out of school. There was no money for anything like that. And so the opportunity that came up to work with him in this group fell into my lap, and like, I was going to say no. Oh my gosh. You know, and so it's been really neat and intimidating, quite intimidating, because he is the first one to say, Melissa, you are not a professional yet. Don't tell people you are. I'm like, okay. He goes, I know you think you know what you're doing, but you don't. I'm like, okay. You know, so there's been a lot of learning opportunities that you know, you get some of this feedback and you're like, okay, don't cry. It was a good thing he told you this. Right. Don't cry, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I mean, that's been really amazing. And then just the opportunity to be me and go to work with these different tool companies and to attend the different shows and run in the crowd that I'm able to run in, and have the friends, you know, they're not even just acquaintances, but the friends that I have that are these very talented artists and teachers. It's been amazing. You know, I've said it so many times, it is so much fun to be me. And I don't know what I did to get this, but I love it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And it's a blessing. It's just it's a blessing. And whatever path you were put on was put on for a reason.
Yeah. And I try to give back. You know, I try very hard to pass on what I have. Matter of fact, it's been very interesting because every now and then you will run into some artists, and it's definitely much more prevalent in older school people. Like Alan Revere told of one of his experiences that after he got done with school, he went to work at a jewelry company, and he was so excited to work with the bench jeweler there and to learn things from this jeweler. And as he got into this, the bench jeweler would watch what Alan was doing, and it was kind of intimidated by Alan and put up a divider so that Alan could not see what he was doing. So there used to be this mentality of you do not share your secrets.
Right.
And, starting from where I started, where it was just, I went to Michael's and I picked up some wire and some beads. And when I went to go get books, there were no books yet.
Right.
There weren't any. They didn't exist yet. Yeah. And so there was a couple of online forums. There was one out on Netscape, and there was the Jewelry Artist Network with Janice Fowler, if anybody knows who that was or is. And she had a forum, and that was where I went. And I would say, here's what I did. And people would be like, yes, they would encourage me and everything like that. And they allowed me to pick their brains. And they were very open with suggestions and techniques, try this or try that, or this is how you're going to do this. Because again, there wasn't an opportunity of teachers to learn anything. And that's actually why I ended up at the University of Akron, because they happen to have a medical or a metals program, and it was close by. But because of that and how sharing everybody was with me, that's why I do what I do. And quite honestly, if we get down to it, it was very selfish the way that all of my stuff happened. So, when you become a jeweler, you need this tool. And if you're going to make jewelry, you need this tool. And then you also need this tool and this tool. Well, pretty quick, I had all of these tools, and I'm like, what the hell do you do with all of these things? I have no clue. And so I had a really good blog following at that point. It's when we still had blogs, and had a really good blog following. And I thought, you know what? If I don't know how to do this, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other people who don't know how to do this either. Yeah. So Tool Time Tuesday started there. And it was all so that I would get into my studio and learn how to use a tool. I'm a teacher. Whether it was programming languages, it was church lessons, it was whatever. That's what I do. That's my talent, is the teaching part of it. And so the best way for me to learn something is to turn around and teach it.
Right.
And so that was where Tool Time Tuesday began. And then when I had Kiari, her pregnancy was absolute hell. That kid is 2.5 months early, spent 2 months in the NICU, and she's still that way. And so, sitting down and photographing and writing a blog post was not feasible. And that was when YouTube was kind of starting to take off. And so I just hit, in June will be 10 years that I've been on YouTube.
Wow.
So, and that's just kind of where things kind of started. And, one thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And here we are.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing, the path that we take? I don't know if you heard Mary Lee Ray's podcast a couple weeks ago, but she was talking about how much further along enamelists could have been in the United States had people shared all the techniques and things that they knew how to do, and they kept those things secret. And so she was starting over from scratch, and no one would teach her. She found somebody who would teach her, but there wasn't like all the things that you were talking about. And I think that it's a disservice that we think we need to hoard the information and come from a place of lack instead of a place of abundance where we share it and teach it and pass it along. And I find that every time I teach something, I learn something. So it's a circle of gifts that we give to others and back to ourselves. So I admire other teachers who will freely give that and teach that without needing something in return to begin with. And you get things in return sooner or later. It may take later.
Oh, for sure. Well, but you know what? How many times have I had a student that has done something and I'm like, my brain doesn't even go that direction.
Right.
That was brilliant.
Right.
And I learn things that way. But I always found it interesting if I ask somebody a technique and they're like, well, if I share it with you, then you're going to do it and then you'll be my competition.
Right.
I'm like, dude, there's enough for everyone. Even if I tried to do it, it's going to look totally different than what you do.
Right. Exactly.
Completely different.
So along with your work, since we, forgot to forward the slideshow. So I wanted to ask you, I think that the best art is when someone's trying to communicate something. It's something they have in passion inside of them that they have to get out, whether they're a storyteller and they're telling a story, or they're going through a technique and really exploring the technique and telling the story of that technique. What do you feel like you're trying to communicate through your work?
So, you know what? It was funny when we were at the University of Akron. Again, I have to come back to this because it's that more academia part of it. But, you know, they always wanted to have like an artist statement, and you had to be like, you know, the sun was coming up this day and it invoked this in me. And I'm one of those that I'm like, I made a pretty piece because it was pretty. I liked it. You know? Like, very rarely do I actually have another meaning behind it. I'm like, this is a rocket cool stone. I'm going to make it even more pretty and throw some silver around it and maybe a couple more stones. Now, that's typical of my pieces. Like, I very rarely do I have a meaning that I'm trying to invoke or anything like that, other than just to make it even more cool because it's already cool on its own. Now, there are certain pieces, however, that are done like that. So there's the pieces, like you had that little secret garden piece that you showed a little bit ago, and that's that one that slides open, you know, and that one.
You did that one for Snag, right? That was for the Halstead?
Yep, that was the Halstead Snag piece. And, you know, that one was, at the time that I made that, was probably my most technically difficult one. The one that I made after that was a million miles beyond that one and harder, you know, and so even when I have those, well, okay, let me back up. To me, art is hard. Okay. Art comes, like making jewelry, the techniques of it, that part comes naturally, but it does not come easily. It is still very difficult for me because it's not something that I grew up with. It's not something that is, you know, was a part of me for so long that I was able to bond and develop with that part of me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's only been within the last few years that I figured out that you can learn to be creative. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that that was a thing. And so as I do that, I'm still kind of developing the voice of that creativity and what do things mean. I'm still kind of in the phase of, it looked really cool, so I tried it. And then obviously, you know, so if I should say that I'm coming up with the story of something, then it's full on pure BS because I don't have it. But when it comes to,
it might be the story of the technique, you know, like you,
and that's what I was going to say.
Wire work or exploring the tube setting, or,
and that was exactly what I was about to say. So now for me, it becomes more of the story of the technique and trying to put some of those things together. People have not seen anything from me for a while now. And that is because I have delved into this deep, dark world of engraving that is a whole other universe of whatever, you know, and it comes back to, remember I told you, I don't draw. And that is a very big downside for people who want to engrave, because the better you can draw, the better you're engraving. Correct. So at this point, I'm just trying to learn the basics of drawing. Matter of fact, Alan had suggested a book, and it was Drawing Made Simple or something like that. A very, very simple, like very few words in this book. It just shows you the steps of how to get from a shape to an object, and it shows you those steps. And for a little while, Alan and I were kind of going through it together, but then it got complex and I dropped it because I was, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but now that I'm back into it, it's again, you know, trying to perfect that skill, and I draw these, I'll draw pages of these leaves, and they are the most deformed things you've ever seen. But then there'll be two that turned out well. Yes. And you're like, oh, I did it. Can I do it again? No, but I did it.
You can't do it again it's all about practice, because like you said, you can learn to be creative. You can also learn to be an amazing sketching artist. My whole background, one of my degrees is in interior design, so it was a BS, a Bachelor of Science, basically in interior architecture. So all of my drawings were on a drafting table with squares and isometric drawings. You know, if you give me a square and a ruler and a pencil, I can do it.
Right.
Then I opened a Paint It Yourself pottery studio, and I would have these little kids come up to me who were like 5, 6, 4, say, "Can you draw me an elephant on my plate?" Well, you're not going to say no. So
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm going to learn to sketch. So I just started sketching things, and before I knew it, having to sketch every day for other people, I became really good at sketching. But I would have never in a million years thought I was a good artist, you know? Like, I
Right.
couldn't draw. Give me a ruler, I could draw, but not like just sketch something out. And I think we're told when we're little, if you can't draw a perfect circle, you're not an artist. That's not
Yep.
true. And people need to stop telling children that they're not creative or they're not artistic or they're not talented, because it's something that you learn just from having confidence and practicing and being, you know, that skill, just doing it over and over again. So when you make your 50th leaf, you'll be able to whip those out. Just like I think that's the problem with engraving, is it takes hours in your butt in the seat, as Wes says, cut something every day. And by the time you've cut the 100th piece, you'll have that confidence that you can cut something. But it's scary at first to, you know, cut into metal or to sketch something and then it goes awry.
Well, and that was one of the things. So, you know, my purpose of taking that gun engraving class, because I'm not a gun person, I'm just not, you know, and I don't care about them or anything like that. But I knew that if I were to engrave a gun, one, there was going to be a lot of cutting that would go into that, you know, and I knew that by the time I got done with it, not only am I going to be able to cut, but I'm also going to be able to do my shading, which was totally the case. 100%, you know, and I wanted to make certain that I had a fire under my butt. Like, I bought one of the cheapest guns I could buy because I don't want to ruin anything. Well, even it was still $650.
Yes, they're not cheap,
you know,
especially these days.
Yes. And so I wanted to make certain that there was a fire under my butt to make me get onto my engraving stuff before I got to that class.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'd be like, you know, whatever, I'll get to it. Do you know what I mean? Because I just know my life. I know how busy it is, and I know how easy it is to not let that one be a priority.
Yeah.
So I found that if I have a deadline and I have a high stake there, then I'm going to make certain that I do it.
You were
so
smart.
I gave myself a high stake, you know, and next month I'm taking an advanced shading and inlay class. Well, my butt has got to get to that bench because it's not just shading and inlay, it's advanced shading and inlay. And then this summer I'm taking an advanced stone setting class. So I'm like, okay, now we have our high stakes there at the end. I have a deadline, and now I need to make certain I make myself do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of key. Like, some people are really good. They're like, nope, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to be really dedicated. There's so much in my life that it's hard to be dedicated regularly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And especially when you throw in a remodel where you've got saws and hammers and whatever else, who knows whatever's going on up there. All of that on top of it, you know. Sorry, I totally took us in a different direction.
That's okay. It's been good. It's good conversation. Ooh, my earbud.
Welcome to ADD Melissa. We're all big time.
We have a lot in common.
So, and you want to know what too, and it's been so much fun to learn different techniques. So the piece that you have right here on your screen, this is one of my, I don't want to say my first pieces with the hydraulic press, but it was one of my earlier pieces with the hydraulic press. And this is probably still one of my favorite pieces that I did. And again, you know, you definitely see my style. There's my swirls. And if you're an engraver, don't look at my swirls because they all go wrong ways. But I didn't know it at the time. You know, those things that we learn now as we continue our education. But anyway, these were things that I used to kind of push my limits. You know, I wanted to have some form and depth and dimension. And when I was introduced to the hydraulic press and even this piece, that is when that happened. because before then, all of my pieces were very flat, and I would try to create depth and dimension. And that was really only possible like with through rivets and creating stacks that way, or just layered pieces, but I wasn't getting any movement that I wanted. And so I was introduced to the hydraulic press, and that was kind of the beginning of that. And it totally took my work into a completely new direction. So the hydraulic press was really good because now I can have depth, dimension. And then I started playing around with it. Well, what if I cut out some of this and I put stuff behind it, And then the piece that we're looking at right now was another one that was kind of a newer one for me. My friend Lindsay Stark was here at my studio one time, and when Lindsay comes, we challenge each other. Like, it's so much fun because when she comes, our skills are right here, and by the time she leaves, they're up here because we challenge each other. We're like, okay, I'm going to pick a stone for you, and you have to do such, and such. And I do the same for her. Well, I don't work big. I do not work big. This stone is gigantic, freaking honking big. And she was like, and you can't bezel set it. And I was like, okay, prongs it is. But I didn't want just prongs, and so that's where I started then to be like, well, what happens if we make our prong really long? Ooh, let's stick a stone on the prongs. And that's where this one kind of came into play. And not only was the stone big, and then I made the pendant even bigger. Like, this thing is like 3 inches by 2.5 inches. It's huge. It's amazing.
Well, you got to try something once every time and then push yourself. And things come out of that you would never have thought of doing before. So I think that's so valuable to have somebody that can be your accountability or push you or encourage you, and then to bounce ideas off of. And
yes,
and community is so wonderful to have. Like Jewelry Makers Guild group is so great because there's so many people willing to share, and you have a great group also. And then you have friends, and we have classes that we do sometimes, and you meet up with people, and the things that happen in community really also inspire and influence our work, which I think is fabulous. So one question I have for you is, when you're making a piece, is it more about the journey, or do you have a harder time letting it go? Because do you get attached to your pieces, or is it for you more about the making of the piece and challenging yourself through that technique?
I totally have a hard time letting my pieces go. So back behind me is a huge fireplace, and it's got this great big mantle. It's got bracelets, lots and lots of bracelets. I have 2 wrists, and you can only wear so many at once.
But you have 3 girls, so you're lucky.
But they don't. Well, okay, Kate and Kiari will wear mine. Kiari is tiny, so I have to make super duper small ones for her. Kate will wear them, but Riley, my oldest one, she's total tomboy. She's like, no, she didn't want a wedding ring. So yeah. So and the way that I got her to do a ring is I had her and the guy that she's getting married to, I had them come up and they made their rings. And that was the only way I could get her to wear a ring.
That's awesome.
But, so yeah, that's kind of fun. But no, I really enjoy the journey. By the way, this is one of my very first pieces with the hydraulic press. That right there was the beginning of my journey. And of course, you got my swirls. But I really enjoy the process of learning. And more so than that, I really enjoy the teaching aspect of it. So I have trays and trays and trays of jewelry here in my studio. That was, me showing people how to make stuff, whether it's one of my online classes, it's an in-person class, whatever. I really need to sell and get rid of it because it's just all sitting here because it's all class samples or pieces that I've made, trying to come up with a new technique or whatever else. So I really enjoy the process of it and learning how to make something. And I really enjoy trying different things or combining techniques even. Another thing too is, I work with a lot of tool companies, and you guys will see a picture here coming up and I'll explain it to you. But I work with a lot of tool companies where I get a lot of prototypes and I'll work through the prototypes. And their question to me is always, Melissa, if you have an idea for a tool, let us know. Well, I'll tell you right now, I never have ideas for tools. However, I can modify a tool that you have to make it do something that you never thought of.
Right.
And that is kind of where I excel, is taking something that exists and coming up with different uses that are completely off the wall and use it in an entirely different way that everybody's like, never would have thought that that was how you would do this. So that part is a lot of fun for me, and doing the whole exploring. I enjoy that part of it.
You're going to need to have a sample sale.
I think I do. My husband would be over the moon. He's like, I think you could probably pay for our remodel if you sold some of your stuff.
Tools are off limits for selling.
Yes, tools are off limits.
So tell us what you're working on right now on your bench.
So I actually have a group of ladies that I mentor. Like, I've got just a couple of people that I mentor. We meet twice a week and we go through all kinds of different things. Like, we started off with actually kind of hitting the personal level. We all have these little inner demons in our heads that tell us how bad we are at things and why we can't do things. And, where did that come from? So we kind of start there, and then we kind of move beyond. And then all the while we're learning different techniques. And I started these ladies at basic. These were not basic women. These are not beginners by any means, but I'm like, nope, we're going back. We're going to learn how to actually file. But then we make it more fun, because then we start carving with our files. And then we started to take our hammers and, how do you properly forge? And we do some of that. So this project right here, this little box, is a Hinge box. And here's my little Hinge box. And we've got our little clasp on it. And boop. So that's kind of was the project that we were going through right as I was taking, because you're like, just take a picture of what's on your bench. Yes. And there it was. So the other thing now, this little thing right here, and there's a couple pictures of them, yep. And they're being built together right now. Matter of fact, Tonya and I hopped on here just before this meeting started, just to do a sound check and everything. And there's this little hammering in the back, and Kate was assembling these. But these are little burr holders that I've created. And so that's what that is. So that's currently taking up a lot of space on my benches while I get these ready to list. Now, Kate wanted to do them so that she could earn some money.
Now, like, do those hold 3/32 and the thicker ones? That, what is it, 1/8 or something?
1/8.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll hold
yeah.
both.
So they do. When I first made them, so like the one that you see here on the bottom, and actually this one right here, because it was one of my first ones. And the way that I did this, the reason that I did this is I was doing a video for Fordham, and they had just released all of their silicone and rubber polishing wheels. It's like, I don't know, 150 different accessories there by the time you get through the grits and the different shapes. And I needed some way to lay it out nicely. And I'm like, let me create this little thing. So that's where this came out. And they were all 3/32. So that's what I did. And then all of a sudden I have these that all have 3/32. I'm like, wait, I got a whole bunch of 1/8 inch stuff.
Yeah.
So then I went back to do that. And then just before I went to the engraving class, I went back again. And now I created some that hold 1/8, 3/32, and then the QC holders for the gravers.
Nice.
So
yeah. So
I have a couple of different versions that I'm putting together. And I'll probably list them sometime on the website.
Well, it's nice that she has something that she can do to earn some money. There's a couple artists that do that with. There's an artist in Wisconsin who her son will weld together tea plates, and then she sell those so he can pay for his college fund or whatever. So I think that's awesome. We can all use tools.
Kate has gone into doing stop motion videos with American Girl dolls.
Nice.
She loves American Girl dolls, and they're so expensive. And she scours the internet, and she's like, "Mom, can I buy this?" I'm like, "No, you have no money." And she's like, "Great, what can I do to earn money?" And so, yeah, this is something that she can do.
That's nice.
To earn some money. Matter of fact, I just placed an order like 5 minutes before we got on to our call for her. So this is a swage block, and this is something that my father-in-law has made for me. We've had a couple different variations of it now. The first ones were a black walnut, and then the second rendition of them was cherry. And the cherry wood actually came from my brother-in-law's property in Florida. And then my father-in-law went down there, picked up the wood, brought it back, and then he put the blocks together at his home in Idaho. And then this latest one, they're so pretty. They are maple. It's a hard maple. They're so pretty. And I use these to form spiculums, not to be confused with the speculum, but spiculums and that hollow form shape. And so I have a couple tutorials and even videos that show how I use those to do like the cone earrings. You can use those for end caps. You can do any number of things. There's a lily pendant that I do that uses them as well. So they're great tools and they're beautiful.
Yes. Very nice to have around. You never know when you're going to need it, but when you need it, it's really important you have that tool because you can't do it any other way.
No, they're nice. Yeah. And then I like it because they're wood, so they're not going to like mark up your metal or anything.
Yes. So how do you prepare yourself for a creative day when you're going to come in? What does your perfect day in the studio look like?
Oh my goodness. A perfect day in the studio would be quiet upstairs. No construction going on. Really, quite honestly, a perfect day in the studio would actually involve probably at least one other person. You know, somebody in there that I could bounce ideas off of and kind of work through that creative process. And, but one where things just kind of flow. So I wish too that I were as clean and organized as you are. I'm definitely not. I'm a clutter bug and it drives me crazy. I wish mine were that messy. Mine is like, right before the video, like the last hour and a half before the video, I cleaned up this area right here. I'm like, okay, how does this look? Do I look really trashy? So this little area right now looks okay, but normally it doesn't. So, and you know what? And I have a hard time with that too, because then I end up with creative paralysis. I can't move, I can't function until I stop and clean things up.
Yeah.
So, you know, as much as I would like this bench top to be clean, this is right behind my filming station. And what happens is I will be filming something and then I will take whatever that's no longer needed on screen and I take it and I put it right behind me. And you know what? Like I never work at this bench. I have some student benches over here and I work at those because this bench is always full of crap.
Yep. And the bigger the bench, the more crap that's on it. So like I turn around, all I have is a stump right here. So if I set stuff there, it has to be cleaned off because otherwise I can't use my stump and it's
can't use it.
It's only, you know, this big. So gotta clean it off. It's amazing how well that works. But if I always wish I had, where's that rolling cart that I could just shove all this stuff onto? And then you can't.
So if you even go, can you go back a screen to like or two screens? Because that's the engraving one. There you go. So recently, this is actually a recent change to my studio where I now have 4 student benches. Before that, I had this great big table that my father-in-law built for me, and it had 6 student stations. So there were catch trays and everything. It was amazing. But here in Utah, I haven't really taught that much in the studio. And when I do, it's just like 1 or 2 students at a time. And so when you have a great big bench, you know what happens? I have this huge bench and I work in this big area, you know, and while I really do miss having that big space, like I'm still trying to figure out how to work in my studio now that I've gotten rid of that. And now that I have like individual little benches, but I find that it's a little bit nicer for me. And it's actually changed even since this image here. You know, I've made a few changes since this rendition of it, but it's kind of nice. And then this way students come in and they actually have their own space, which is really lovely, you know, for that part of it as well.
Yes.
I still have yet to figure out how to get my engraving bench to look decent. I haven't. Like, it's just a mess all the time. It's like, I need a bigger bench.
Then you'd have just a bigger mess.
I know, I would.
It's lovely though. Look at all the tools.
Yeah. But really, quite honestly, I'm such a social person that it's lovely to have other people in the studio with me.
Well,
and
you know, with Zoom, I don't know why more of us don't call each other and just, you know, you've got your screen, you've got it already set up because you're teaching, and then just Zoom somebody in and say, what you working on today? Let's go solder. You know, you could do a virtual, you know, I don't
little
camp.
gathering.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
together.
And I
So-
actually have done that a couple times with a couple of my friends as well. So I have done that. And then with my mentoring ladies, the ladies that I mentor, I do that with them occasionally too. And it's helpful. When we lived in Ohio, I started a guild. Why did I start a guild? Because I needed friends.
Yeah.
And it just helped it just happened that everybody else benefited from it at the same time.
Yes.
But again, it was that whole selfish reason that I started something, Tool Time Tuesday, a guild, because I needed something out of that, And I'm very, very fortunate. So you've just seen two little cuties, and they do work in the studio with me. And these two, they are so much fun. So last year when the world shut down, these poor kids were sitting here on this computer. Schools hadn't figured out how to do this online thing. And it was horrible. It was awful. Poor Kiari, who is so ADHD. Like if you've ever seen Kiari, total ADHD, she would sit, even if she was on task, from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. doing schoolwork. And it finally got to the point where I was like, I emailed our teachers and I said, we are doing this assignment, this assignment, this assignment, and this one, and the rest of them I'm not doing. We're done. She's done. And so I needed to get them away from the computer and away from schoolwork. So I pulled them into the studio and we did live videos every day. And it really irked some people because I would have my kids in the studio with me and why can't I get rid of them and just teach what I was doing? I'm like, nope, you know what? I'm teaching my girls and I'm allowing you guys to watch.
That's nice.
So if you guys pick some stuff up, great, you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, on your way. And it was amazing. Kiari at the time was 9. That kid can solder. She can set bezels and tube settings. She can't do prongs yet. But, she can do all of that on her own. And she was 9. And then the piercing, we won't even get started. That kid can pierce like you won't believe. And then Kate, same type of thing. She was 13 and, she started high school this year and she took a drawing class. And one of the things that they had to do was pick a piece that inspired them. And she picked one of my pieces. And so she drew it. And the teacher said, I think I'd like to see you make this piece.
Ah.
And so she did. And it was not an easy piece. It was a heart, and it basically had a flower on it and all the root structure down. So she did all the root structure out of wire and soldered all of that onto a solid piece. I mean, it was pretty cool to watch.
Cool.
And I didn't do it. I was like, I'm just going to look and see what you do, and I'll help you if you run into a problem. So it's really cool that I have my own built-in little group here. And those two, well, even Riley, my oldest one that you see there, she's away at college, but those 3 girls are my biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They are amazing. Like even today, I don't even remember where we were. We were somewhere. Maybe it was even last night, but it was last night. And we were talking with somebody and she kind of asked what my story was. And Kiari jumps in and she goes, my mom does this and she's famous.
I love it.
Yeah. So, I'm very fortunate that they are like that. Once they went back to school, I don't have my little kids in here anymore, unfortunately. But, I'm kind of looking forward to having them over the summer because then I can pull them back in here and do some more.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the confidence that they're going to gain from trying these things that most kids would never be able to do and playing with fire.
Right. And even though it doesn't go perfectly, but having them in here and having that creativity flowing in here, that creates my perfect day.
Yeah. Well, good. That's amazing. That's the perfect way to say it. And you summed that up really well. I love that. So my next question for you is, you have a lot of balls in the air, juggling everything. And so, what is your strategy or technique for managing all of the tasks that you have to do, not only with your family and the girls, but with marketing and packaging and shipping and sourcing and teaching and getting your kits together and running all the groups that you do. So how do you make it all work? And what would be your tips for other artists that are having a hard time just figuring out how to fit it all into their day?
That's such a good question. And that's a hard one to answer. I'm a terrible, terrible business person. I really am. This was the first piece, by the way, that I made with a swage block. This is the piece that I submitted to Art Jewelry Magazine. That was my first article for Art Jewelry Magazine. But I'm a terrible business person. I am. I just kind of go by the seat of my pants. I'm very fortunate that I'm currently in a situation that I do not have to work. I'm not the one who right now is providing the income, and my husband is extremely supportive because he knows that I put his butt through school, and he's like, okay, my turn to take care of you. He's wonderful. He is amazing that way. You know, I work because I want to work. And even when I get really frustrated, my husband is like, you don't have to do this. Why do you do this to yourself? You know, and then we go in and we do taxes, and it turns out that I've paid everybody to watch my videos because I'm so bad. And he's like, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
And I am. And when it comes down to it, it's because I enjoy doing it. You know, and there are parts that I have had to let go. Like, I no longer really sell tools. I used to sell a lot of tools, but it got to the point where, you know, it was more work to create, you know, keep that part of it going. And I can't compete. I can't compete with Auto Fry and Rio Grande and Micro Tools or any of those people. So it made more sense to partner with them instead. Mm-hmm. And that way, then when people come to me, they say, where can I get this? And I can be like, okay, this person has the best price on this. This one has the best price on this. But these guys, while their price might not be the best, maybe they have this that they can offer that will make that a little bit better. And so then I can kind of start to direct things that way. When it comes to really keeping all the balls in the air, I've had to figure out which balls are glass and which are rubber. Mm-hmm. Okay, which ones are going to bounce, because I drop a lot of balls. Yeah. My family is a glass ball, so that one definitely stays up in the air, and they will come first every time. You know, and sometimes to the detriment of my reputation, when it's like, okay, where'd she go? Why is this been kind of dropped here or whatever? I love my groups. I'm a terrible admin because while I'm there every day, I'm not always like deep in participation every day. Just because, you know, we've got Taekwondo, we've got cello lessons, we have flute lessons, we have gymnastics, we have homework, and that's, you know, where all of that comes into play. I try to do all of my work while my kids are at school. Matter of fact, that kind of came back and bit me on the butt one time. About 2 years ago, Kiari asked me, Mom, when you went to school or when you went to college, what did you do? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Because that could go a couple directions. And she says, well, I want to do what you did in school so I don't have to work when I grow up. And I was like, what do you think I do when I leave for weeks at a time? You know, but it was kind of an awesome thing at the same time, because to me, that was kind of confirmation that I was doing things okay. You know, I got all of the work done while they were at school. And then when they were at home, I was with them. You know, I take Taekwondo with my girls. I'm a black belt. My girls are just about to be. You know, I do it with them. And then they see that I'm there for their activities. I go on the field trips. I go in except for this year, you know, I'm in the classroom volunteering. And so they see that. They don't see that, oh, Mom works. They just think Mom has a cool shop, you know? Go ahead.
Do you find that you need to segment things? Like, okay, so I'm going to do this in the morning with them, and I have karate, Taekwondo in the evening. So I have, you know, every day from noon to 3 I'm doing this in my studio, so that you're able to get this stuff done. You have like a way that you schedule?
There is definitely a game of Tetris with time that has to be played, and it's a very delicate balance of Tetris sometimes. There are a lot of to-do lists all over, you know. Every now and then I'll get into a really good routine, and I'll, like the night before, I'm like, okay, here's what needs to be done. Boom, 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 boom. And I'll write it down. And the next day I might get working on it a little bit. But as you've already seen in our little interview here within the last hour, I am so squirrel. Oh, let's go do this. Oh, wait, I got to come back to do this. All right. Let's come back to do this. And I get pulled in a lot of different directions. Yeah. And this year is especially weird just because of the remodel going on and, you know, different things. So while I try to have a good system, it doesn't always go well. But one of the things that I do is I will at least every night kind of look at what's coming up over the next couple of days in my schedule and kind of prioritize this must be done, this must be done. And then the rest of them become rubber balls. Mm-hmm. But I pick my glass ones and then the rest become rubber. And if something bounces, I may get to it. I might not get to it. I think sometimes I might come off a little bit flaky just because I have to pick which ball drops. And I hate that, and so I'm not one that misses a lot of deadlines. Kate, you want to know what this pile of boxes are? You want to take a guess what that pile is?
Tools.
They are definitely tools. All of those boxes hold tools that need to be reviewed.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And, and then I think, okay, I'm finally going to get to them. And then a new box shows up. Yeah. And some of those boxes have, 50, 60, 70 tools in them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and that's the other thing too. What's that?
There's only so much you can do.
Yes. And like I said, and that's why that's they're all sitting right on the other side of this bench right here, which you saw the top of. That was my soldering table. But yes, there's only so much that I can do. And a couple of those boxes have been sitting there a couple months too long. So this is what it looks like so you saw my little box that I was creating. So that was what I was working on when this picture was taken. This is my filming station. So this is what it looks like on my filming station.
Is that where you're sitting right now?
No, it's actually back behind me.
Okay. Back by the fireplace.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I see the copper thing. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Right. Yeah. So I have 4 cameras set up on this station. And then you see my iPad, it's closed right there in that picture. But that's how I run all of my cameras. So I can switch between the cameras while I'm filming. And then it switches for me and makes the editing so much easier. Because before, if you had multiple cameras, then you had to pull the video for all of the cameras and then try to splice everything together. So now I've got a couple of different products that will record or bring in all 4 cameras at the same time. So I have all of their data, but I have one that will cut from camera to camera when I tell it to.
That's cool.
So that's really nice when that happens. But the thing that's kind of nice and difficult about this station is that I have to keep everything fairly portable. So you'll see that my bench pin is not actually hard attached there. I have a new Concepts clamp style. Mm-hmm. And so I can move that out of my way when I need to. You see my soldering tray right there on a silver thing. So I just pick that up and I can move it out of the way. So everything right there is very portable. So, if I'm working on riveting or if I'm working on stone setting or if I'm working on whatever else, that is kind of a do everything space.
Yeah. And most people don't understand how hard it is and expensive to set up all the cameras and all the equipment and then figure out you don't think about it when you're working at your bench and you need to go use the shear. You just get up and go use it. But if you're teaching a class, that camera has to go with you or you have to have a camera set up there. So it's really, it's also, you're not just an artist and a teacher, but now you're a filmmaker, producer, director, and props person.
Yes. Yeah. And then, and a lot of times too, so like right here at this station, I can control my lighting, but everywhere else in the studio, I cannot. Right. So even looking at this right here, my lights were not currently on. But if you look here in the foreground, you see how yellow the light is, but you look off to that left side, look at how blue it is, and that all creates a jog in continuity when it comes to the videos, and then not only that, but the cameras that are mounted here are not portable.
Yeah.
So I have to have a completely different camera setup to go somewhere else in the studio.
Yep.
So
yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
There really is.
And it's nice for people to be able to see behind the scenes. So I'm glad that you're sharing this because it is important for people to understand what goes into that and what goes into teaching. And it's behind the scenes that they would normally not get. So I appreciate you sharing that too.
Yeah.
So
Well, this is definitely my mess.
this is more of your studio. So
Yeah.
and this is right by where your bench is and where you're teaching, right? In the back.
Cool. Yes. So this is back again, right back there in the back. So that's like at my filming station. If I'm sitting at my filming station, it's off to my left, right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, you know, I've got my little stump there, so it's portable. There's all my bracelets. Look at that.
Yeah, you do have quite the collection. I wouldn't have known what those were if you hadn't told me. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Sample
whole bunch
sale.
of bracelets. I know. I really do need to. But see, you know what? And then it's kind of like, well, do I sell these because this technique on this bracelet was different than this technique over here? And then I get rid of all my samples.
And then you'll have to
but
make
at the
more.
same time, I know. At the same time, it's like, how many do you need?
Right, exactly. So this is my favorite part of the chat is to just, and of course you and I are both tool fanatics. So I don't know what better word to use, but we love our tools and we love talking about tools and sharing our favorite tools. So I love it when I can ask an artist, just pick 10. Some people
Oh my
can't.
gosh, do you know how hard that was for
You
me?
actually gave me 12 and I cut 2 out. So
Oh, did I give you 12?
Yes, you have to stick with 10. So
Oh, that's awesome.
So here, your number 10 is the Durston rolling mill. And I actually, is this the 1/3?
This one's actually a 130 agile, but that was just because that's what I found the picture of. My Durston rolling mill is a CRM 150. So it's the one that has the extension rollers. It's the first. So when I first got going into jewelry, I was making stuff, and you want to know what, quite honestly, the rolling mill was one of those tools that everybody was like, well, if you're going to make jewelry, you need a rolling mill. And it was like, okay. And then I bought it and then I never used it. You know, it wasn't until I'd had it for probably 3 years before I used it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those that was like that. But the thing I really liked about it was the fact that I had a really big flat space. When you buy a rolling mill, you want to buy as big as you can afford.
Yes.
You know, and so for me at that time, it was my rolling mill. And matter of fact, that, and I bought my guillotine shear at the same time. Like you can't even get that particular shear anymore. And because I bought both of them at the same time, I got a killer deal on them. But you want to get with your rolling mill, you want to buy as nice as you can afford. The thing I really like about the Durstons is that they are overbuilt. You know, you need to always be careful about really hanging on your rolling mill. Like when you're pushing this one, you can kind of hang on and it's not going anywhere. It's a lovely, lovely machine. But this one happens to be the Agile. So the Agile has both the half round and the square on the main roller. Mine has a big flat space. Mine's got 100 millimeter flat space, 50 millimeters of the wires. I think I have 11 different size square wires. And then I have a side roller that has 4 sizes of half round.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love these machines. And I've been very fortunate that in the last year and a half, I've also teamed up with Durston a bit to work with them on improving some of their tools and doing some of the reviews. They've been a really fun company to work with.
Yeah, I have 2 of those. Not the Agile, but I have 2 Durston rolling mills.
Yeah.
And I love them. I didn't get the 150, I got the 130, the combo roller, the CRM. And I didn't use it the first few years that I was making stuff. But once I started alloying my own metal, there's no way I could have made anything without a rolling mill. And I use it all the time now. So it is something that you invest in yourself. But if you ever go to sell it, you can sell it for 95% of its worth immediately to someone else. So it's just an investment in yourself and your studio, and you'll get your money back out of it when you're done. You just have to know that don't buy cheap tools because you'll never get your money back out of cheap tools. Mm-hmm. But good tools, you will always be able to get your money back out of, as long as people are making jewelry anyway.
Yes, and there's 3 tools. There's 3 tools that I would say you need to spend your money right the one time and one time only. And that's going to be your flex shaft, your disc cutter, and your rolling mill. Those 3. Spend it right one time. Yeah. So, definitely fight that urge to be like, but this one's only $200. put that $200 in the bank and add to that $200,
Right.
add to it 200 more, and then 200 more and get the good one, because these are precision tools. And when you buy the precision one, you will be happy.
You're going to have to add to the engraving ball to your 3. It's going to have to be 4.
Yes. Okay. Yes, for sure. For sure. Because, yeah,
Your
there's definitely a difference.
Yes. Your number 9 is one of my favorite tools, the texturing wheels.
These things are so awesome. Now, this set right here, they are not cheap.
No.
Okay. I want to say this set is about $160, and I get these through Guest Wine for this particular set. And they are lovely. You can get a look that is almost like you sandblasted it, where it's nice and that star, what did they used to call those? The stardust effect. All the way through. Like if I go to the finest one, which in this case is that red one, I want to say. I don't know. I can't remember. It's either the red or the yellow.
No, it's the red.
Okay. But you go to that finest one and it is the most beautiful satin smooth finish that you can get. So you've got that whole range there and it's lovely. I love those things. You have to be careful. Those suckers will rip your skin off.
Yep.
And if you go too fast and you apply too much pressure, those babies will fly. So you make sure that you've got your safety gear on when you work with those.
Yeah, they can be
that's
dangerous.
the other thing too. Like any tool, if you respect your tools in your studio, they're going to work great for you and they will last forever.
Yes. I think you're right. The yellow is the finest because I have the red and the blue and I just bought the gray. But the green is between the gray and the red, I think. But anyway, it's because it's in case people don't know, it's the size of the wire. So they start very thin wire and they go up to thicker wire. And when
the thicker wire gives you more of a coarse effect.
Yes. And I did a video last week with using these and someone had asked me what they were. So it created a lot of interest in them. But I just tell people, think about kissing your piece with them. So it's just like a light, and you're just barely touching it. You're not applying pressure. Or that's when they go bing and they fly off and they're dangerous.
Yeah.
So your number 8 are your sanding rolls. And I love the sanding rolls so much.
Oh my gosh, these are so awesome. So 2 years ago, we were at JCK and I was working with Fordham in the auto fry booth for JCK. And there is a company called Oro, and they are based out of China. Now, usually I kind of poo-poo stuff out of China. Oro creates really good things. They've had a lot of really good stuff come out of their factory, and that's why Fordham partnered with them. So you'll see some of the different things that are Fordham by Oro. Okay. And this is part of that line. This is that Fordham by Oro. But these things freaking rock. Yeah. They are 10 inches long and it's 1 inch wide and it's a sandpaper. And what happens is you use it up and then you just tear off that little used part and you're fresh again and ready to go. They are awesome. And the best part is they're like $15 for 12 of them.
I couldn't live without mine. They're just like the best. And I've had these for probably 2 years and it's still pretty big. Yeah. It's not full size, but they last a really long time and they're just better than I also think about, especially the younger jewelers that are starting out. When you're starting out and you want your body to last as long as possible because everything we do is a repetitive movement. And like our eyeballs too, especially. With your eyesight. So you want to make sure you can sit at that chair for a really long time. And in 20, 30 years, you're still able to use your hands. So if you can take shortcuts by using these kinds of tools instead of the traditional sanding tools, it's less wear and tear on your body. It's not really cheating. It's just a smarter way to work so that you can work longer. And
then people will say, well, why can't I just make this myself? By all means, you can. Sure. But seriously, at $1 a piece, where is your time value?
Yes.
What's your offset? Your time is worth money. How much is it? For $1 a piece, here's my money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that artists forget is that your number one cost is your labor. Not the tool, not the materials, stop worrying about working in gold or silver versus copper. That is not your biggest expense. Your biggest expense is your labor. So if you can learn to work faster, easier, that's going to pay for your tools and working in a different material.
Yes.
I think they missed the boat thinking about that. And I actually was writing a post this morning and I got interrupted going to the dentist, but I need to finish it. And I had broken down, if you want to make $20 an hour, this is what it costs you for every 15 minutes you sit on social media and don't work, or you do something that could take you less time and you're just blowing money. You could be making more money. You could be using it more wisely than to do these things that are just a waste. So
Right.
I think people need to think about that. And it's a valid thing to bring up when you're talking about tools and how to use them and what to purchase. So your number
Right.
7 is your GRS engraving ball. I think
Yes,
that
and
one.
not just an engraving ball, the short profile one.
Yeah, I bought the
You know,
big
this
one, and
one,
that's not a good idea.
yeah, no, and I have the big one that's kind of a knockoff of the GRS one, and it just is so big and bulky. And when we did our class back in December with Wes, he let me use his short profile one, and I was like, all right, that's worth it. I'm going to go get one of those. The other thing that's really nice about this short profile one is that the bottom is actually perfectly half round. So a lot of times they'll have kind of a conical shape to them so that it'll hold a little differently. But this one is just nice and it's round, so it moves a little bit easier. And then GRS ones, they just spin for days. Like you just spin that baby and it just spins and spins and spins and spins. Like they're lovely. And you want to have that motion, that free motion of that. So,
Yeah, and they'll last you forever. Your number 6 is the Grobay needle files.
love these files. And really, quite honestly, it doesn't even have to be the Grobay ones. You just want to, I know, I love your thing. I love that. That's awesome. And it's not even, like I said, it doesn't even matter the brand. I can't live without my needle files. And before I got to the point where I knew the difference between good tools and not so good tools, like Harbor Freight was my friend and their $5 needle file set. That was my friend. And I did very well with that until I actually tried a nice set of needle files. And I'm like, oh, what was up with the Harbor Freight one?
Yeah.
They did their job and they still do their job, but having a nicer cut needle file set. The Grobay ones are absolutely lovely. They have a beautiful finish. They've got a Swiss pattern cut to them, and they're made well, and it's always definitely worth doing that. Now, a set of needle files like this one here is probably going to run you between $50 and $60, worth every penny. And again, when you break this down, you've got 12, they're $60. So how much does that make it per file? You're not talking major bucks, but it is kind of an investment, but it's an investment you make once.
Yes. And everyone who's starting to make jewelry should just either go take a class somewhere that they like at your house, that they can use your tools and try them out.
Yes.
Or a local Parks and Rec, and then you can just get the inexpensive ones, because you'll certainly use them for like modifying a tool in your studio or on wood or on whatever you need in your studio that you don't want to use your good files once you decide to upgrade. So you will get a use out of them, and you don't need to go for the most expensive thing right off the bat. But these are really good quality, and they will last you 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So
especially if you treat them right.
Exactly. Your number 5 is your bench light.
Yes.
Does that look familiar?
Yep. Yes, it does. So now they actually, from the time that I bought mine, because I bought mine ages ago. Mine have the 3 bulbs in it. So it's like the 3 fluorescent bulbs. They now have it out in LED, which is lovely because you can change your color tone. Right. I don't actually have the LED ones, but that's actually what's pictured here.
Yeah.
I have used the LED ones.
They flicker,
though. They're lovely.
They're good. They're good in your studio, but if you want to do any filming with them, they don't work well because they flicker in the video.
Oh, right. Yeah. But the thing that's important, so I had LASIK on my eyes probably 12 years ago now. And when we did that, I found that I need a lot more light in my studio. And so if you ever visit my studio, like you can see my lights back here on my student benches, but I have lights galore. Like on my big bench that's back there behind my filming station, there's 3 lights. And then at each of the different stations, so I've got my hydraulic press, I have my polishing station, I have sanding station, I have a forging station, I have a drill press. Every one of them has lights. So, when we bought this house, this room was set up to be kind of like a second family dining and kitchen area. It's like a mother-in-law type of suite type of area, but they have can lights, they have the recessed lights, and that's all that's in here, which it's lovely. It gives you some nice light, but it's not enough for what we need. And so even if you don't, I just picked a light, but you just need lighting. That's my favorite tool. I need light. Yes. So IKEA is my friend. I've got tons of the little gooseneck lights and everywhere.
Yeah, you can't have enough lighting, especially the older you get, the more lights you need.
Oh, goodness. That and magnification.
Oh, that's a never-ending search for the right magnification. At least we have the right lights. We don't have to search anymore. These are like amazing. As you can see, I have, I think, 10 in here. So I definitely...
they're wonderful.
Yeah, they're great.
And they're not even that expensive. I want to say maybe they are expensive. They're like $100 to $120.
Yeah.
Worth every penny.
Yeah.
Worth every penny.
Yes. Your number 4 is your frets planishing hammer.
And again, it doesn't even have to be the frets one. I do like my frets hammer. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I do like my frets hammers. And I have a full set of them, and they're lovely, and they're on display for everyone to see. But it also makes it really easy to get to them. But regardless of the name brand or whatever, every jeweler needs a good planishing hammer. You need a good planishing hammer. Planishing hammers have a flat side and then a slightly domed side. Doesn't matter who makes it. I've got a Petting House, and I also have a Picard that were my 2 first planishing hammers. And then when because frets didn't exist at that point with his hammers. And then when they came out, then I was like, ooh, I need one of those. I do like my frets tools though. They are not only pretty, but they are so easily held in your hand. They've got the most beautiful, sexy handle that just fits right. Mm-hmm. I like those.
Your number 3 is the Fordham micromotor.
I cannot live without my micromotor. I had, forever, again, one of my first tools was my Fordham Flex Shaft. And I bought the K2230, which is the jeweler's kit one that has a number 30 handpiece. So it's the SR motor. Mm-hmm. Fabulous machine. I still use it all the time. But about 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, it might be even 3 years ago now, I added a micromotor to my repertoire, and I hardly ever use my flex shaft anymore. I mean, there's certain tasks that I use my flex shaft for, but my micromotor is lovely. So the difference between that is that, your micromotor, you've got your motor up here with the pendant, and then you've got the flex shaft. Okay, that's your flexible shaft that then hooks onto a hand piece. So all of the work happens up here, and all that's doing with your hand piece is your hand piece is spinning. That's the only thing your hand piece does. When you're working with a micromotor, that hand piece is the motor. That is your motor. That's your pendant that's hanging there. So that's your motor. And your box where you're thinking, oh, well, that's the motor. No, that's just a controller that controls your speed and everything. The thing with the micromotors, though, is that they are quick change. So you're kind of limited to the size of things that you have. So in my machines, what I've done is I've bought them with a 1/8 inch shank. And then I use a collet adapter that goes from a 1/8 inch to 3/32. So now I can use either 1/8 or 3/32. I still need to have my number 30 handpiece with my flex shaft if I'm going to be using all sorts of little drill bits and whatever else that has all the different sizes. But my micromotor, it's easy. It's super flexible. I don't have the weight of that shaft pulling me down and putting tension here on my wrist as I'm trying to use it. And they go pretty fast. They don't have quite as much torque as a flex shaft does, but really in our jewelry industry, rarely do we need a lot of torque other than maybe with our hammer handpiece. And with the hammer handpiece one, then that torque is kind of built into that motor anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I have a Nakanishi, which I love.
Nice.
Yeah, micromotor. I have a Marathon too, but that was my first purchase, and then I upgraded. And that one is the high torque model, and you do need that if you're doing pave stone setting or any of those. And that's the one part where it will pay for it, is if you're going to get into pave stone setting. But I still use my flex shaft every day. It's here. I use it. When you need to drill something out and you need to use the big drill bits, you have to have the 30 hand piece, and that's the only thing that'll work unless you're going to go get your big old, I was going to say your husband's drill. That's not right. Sexist. But anyway, I would go steal my husband's drill. I don't do any of that stuff. So your number 2 is your Green Lion saw frame. I love
that one. I really do like. I do like my Green Lion saw frame. I mean, I have probably 15 to 20 different saw frames here in my studio. Kiari had a heyday when she was trying them out. And why do I have so many? Because I teach, and so this way then I have all the different kinds. And really, like, the way that one started with me getting different saw frames was I was trying to figure out which ones I wanted. And at the time I was a tool reseller. And so I was like, well, let's order one of each and see what we think, and then it gave me the ability to have that here for the students as well. And then when I teach, I always take 12 kits, 12 full tool kits, so that everybody has the right tools and whatever else. But this way, like I said, then I can have the tools that everybody needs, saw frames included. But I really do like the Green Lion saw frame. I like how lightweight it is. It's rigid. It has beautiful shape to it, in and of itself. It just feels really good in my hand. I do also, I would say, I really like my New Concepts frame. And the one of my New Concepts that I like has the lever, that cam lever. Yep, exactly.
Because sometimes this is not a deep enough throat. And you need something deeper. And this is easy to change out, especially if you're doing piercing work. This is much easier and faster. This one is easy to load compared to a German saw frame. And I love this handle. It feels so good. I do too. This one, it's not...
The handle's like a handle, but I still like the fact that they're rigid and they're lightweight.
Yeah. Okay, and your number 1... drum roll is the Tronex cutters.
Yes. Now this one is a 5812, which means it has the short handle. The one that I really like is the 7812 that has a longer handle. I love this cutter. Cutter, period. It is just lovely. It's got a nice flush edge on the back side, and it cuts thicker gauge of wire. So I can cut easily 14 through this, and I think it's rated up to 12. But quite honestly, I do cut thicker with it. I just kind of work my way through that metal as I do. So I wouldn't just go and, head into it. But I've always loved this cutter. I've had this cutter now for 12 years.
Wow.
In my studio. And it's been a really good one. I only recently damaged one. After 10 and a half years, I guess it was 11 years, and I damaged it. And I was like, no, but I happily paid my money and bought myself a new one. I was like, nope, we got to have that baby. So I like this one because it's pretty versatile. I never feel bad or worry about cutting gold, silver, copper, anything like that. And like I said, I can cut thicker gauges even. I just like that one. And it gives me a nice flush cut on the back side. Like all these cutters, you're always going to get a flush cut, and then you're going to get a pinched edge. So. Yeah.
I haven't tried this one, but I will have to do that.
So one of the things that I really like about Tronex, one, they're made here in the US, but the handles are solid all the way down. All the way down. So you get some really good leverage on those.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with us with the issue with everyone who's still on this call also. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time. I can't wait to see what you do next, what you create next, what class you have that comes up, and of course, what engraving comes out of your class that you're going to.
I'm excited.
Waiting for your posts on that. Please, you all check out her social media pages, which is in the corner down below, and her website. website and you sign up for any future classes she might have. And I'll post that information, or she can, in the comments section down below. I'm sure you guys have some comments, so she'll want to read those and answer anything that's pertinent. Please, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please smash the like button and the subscribe button. That one's the most important.
And go over to my channel and do the same thing.
Yes. And if you leave a comment on the YouTube channel on any of the videos in the months of April, May, and even June, I'm going to be picking somebody's name out to give you one of our new enameling pins. That's the Jewelry Makers Guild pin for your apron or your jacket. So you got to have flair on your apron. I'd also love for you, of course, to follow and like my pages on Instagram, where I show all my processes and share tools and videos. And thanks again for attending, everybody. I really appreciate it. And catch us in next week. So we missed a week because of the DOS attack, or whatever it's called. And so this one was pushed back a week, but next Wednesday is our next guest, Teresa Kiplinger, she is an amazing, not only
cool.
enamelist, but she does chasing repoussé, and her work is, she tells stories with poems that she writes and etches those into the work. So you won't want to miss the conversation we have. And that's live next Wednesday afternoon, same time, same place, and then you'll be able to view it on YouTube. So thank you, Melissa, again. I really appreciate your time. It was a great conversation. Sorry again about the technical difficulties. I have no idea. I think that was your fault. No, it couldn't have been my fault.
Totally my fault.
Okay,
Something.
Good. So you guys have a great evening, and come back and see me next week, and check out Melissa's pages, and have a great night.
Thanks for having me, Tonya. It was fun.
All right. You guys have a good one. Oop, wrong side.